Welcome to the 0 Days Since Nonsense podcast. Since this is the first episode, I wanted to take a minute to introduce myself and explain what this podcast actually is before I start yelling about AI being shoved into dishwashers. I'm Noah, I'm 28 years old, and I work in information security. I've been in the field for about 7 years and have gotten my associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees in cybersecurity and information assurance, as well as collected an assortment of certifications with renewal fees that are actively trying to keep me in debt. Basically, I spent a concerning amount of time learning how tech is supposed to work, only to find in my actual career that it doesn't work that way. That's kind of the point of this podcast. 0 Days Since Nonsense is a lighthearted tech podcast about the weird, frustrating, and funny things that happen in tech. Security, AI, bad software, corporate buzzwords, tech debt, users refusing to restart their machines, all of it. This isn't meant to be some super polished corporate thought leadership podcast where I say digital transformation 14 times and pretend that every problem can be solved with a dashboard. It's more of a tech venting session. The goal is to talk about real problems in a way that's honest, funny, and hopefully relatable to you if you work in tech, manage tech, use tech, or have ever stared at an error message and questioned your life choices. I'm not here to act like I know everything. I definitely don't. I'm still learning, still breaking things, still fixing things I broke 6 months ago, and occasionally opening my old code and wondering who hurt me. But I do think there's value in talking about the nonsense out loud. A lot of people in tech deal with the same frustrations, and sometimes it helps to hear someone say, "No, you're not crazy. It really is that stupid." So that's the show. Some venting, some jokes, some actual points, and hopefully at least one moment per episode where you think, unfortunately, I know exactly what he means. And with that out of the way, let's talk about AI. This week on 0 Days Since Nonsense, AI is in your inbox, your browser, your dishwasher, your security dashboard, and somehow it still can't summarize a meeting correctly. Feels like every product has AI now. Sometimes it's genuinely useful. It can increase productivity, reduce stress from a heavy workload, and help people get through annoying repetitive tasks faster. But sometimes it wipes your entire production database and says, oopsie. And that's kind of the problem. Somewhere between AI can help me write a script to parse 400 lines of garbage text and AI should be a foundation of our entire business strategy, everyone lost their minds. Now, I want to be clear up front, I'm not anti-AI. I use AI all the time to save time. In my role, I'm constantly writing little scripts to parse information, interact with APIs, clean up data, summarize logs, and deal with the other random nonsense that comes with working in tech. It's so much easier to shovel a mountain of text at an LLM and say, "Can you please do all of this for me and let me take all the credit?" That's useful. That's practical. That's the kind of AI that actually makes sense. But there's a big difference between using AI as a tool and treating AI like duct tape for business strategy. And right now, a lot of companies aren't asking, where can AI actually help? They're asking, how do we say AI in the earnings call? It usually starts with leadership or the board asking the same handful of questions. How are we using AI? What's our AI strategy? What claims can we make about how AI is reducing workloads and increasing profits? They're not asking, what problems are we trying to solve? Where are people losing time? Are we actually staffed correctly? What processes are painful enough that automation would genuinely help? It's all about how can we push AI into our products and make more money. Then the panic cycle begins. Somebody makes a slide deck. A vendor shows up with a demo environment that's somehow both insecure and non-functional. Everyone says transformative 8 times. Someone mentions agentic workflows and nobody asks what that actually means because nobody wants to look stupid. A tool gets purchased. Nobody defines success. Nobody defines ownership. Nobody defines what happens when the tool is wrong. 6 months later, the company has a new AI platform, same broken workflows, and 3 people who know where the login page is. And the worst part is that everybody is acting like this is innovation. Now, sometimes it is. Sometimes AI really does improve a process or make someone's job easier. But sometimes it's just panic with a purchase order. Once the company has spent money, rolled it out, announced it internally, and maybe somebody even made a logo for the initiative, admitting it becomes politically expensive. So now, adoption isn't low because the tool is the wrong fit. Adoption is low because people need more enablement. Which is corporate for, we already paid for this, so please, start pretending like it helps. And that's when the sunk cost kicks in. The company stops asking, is it working? And starts asking, how do we prove that this was a good decision? That's a dangerous shift. Because at that point, you're not solving a problem anymore. You're protecting the decision that created the problem. Maybe the company didn't need a massive AI platform. Maybe they just needed better processes. Maybe they just needed clearer documentation. Maybe they just needed to stop making one person do the work of 4 people. Maybe they just needed to hire more staff. But hiring people is expensive and boring. AI sounds futuristic. So instead of fixing the actual problem, they buy a tool, roll it out to everyone, and act confused when it doesn't magically repair the business. On top of that, AI can create a lot of output that looks productive, but doesn't have any actual substance. And I think that's one of the biggest traps. AI is extremely good at making something look finished. Meeting notes that nobody reads, emails that still need rewriting, summaries that sound confident but miss the one thing that actually mattered, chatbots that will confidently give you the wrong answer but do it in a very polite way and tell the user how smart and amazing they are when they're challenged. And that's because when people see output, they assume there's progress. But output isn't the same as value. If AI saves me 10 minutes but creates 15 minutes of verification work, did it help or did it just move the work? If it writes an email in 30 seconds but I spend 10 minutes making it sound human, did it save time? If it summarizes a meeting but misses the decisions that actually matter, did it help or did it just create a second thing that I now have to check? And that's the part that people forget to include in the productivity math. They count the generation time, but they don't count the review time. They don't count the correction time. They don't count the time spent explaining to someone that an AI-generated answer was wrong, but it sounded confident, so now everyone believed it. A perfect example of this is companies bragging about the volume of code they're producing with AI. Now that sounds impressive until you remember that more code isn't automatically good code. Nobody brags that a plumber used 40% more pipe. At some point, you have to ask, did we solve the problem or did we just create more stuff to maintain? When companies focus on the number of lines of code written, they're not measuring quality. They're not measuring efficiency, security, maintainability, or whether the code should have been written in the first place. They're measuring volume. And volume isn't always a win. If your AI strategy is, we wrote more code, congratulations. You may have also written more bugs, more vulnerabilities, more tech debt, and more reasons for some poor developer to quit 6 months from now. That's where the whole 10x developer thing gets funny. AI can absolutely help a strong developer move faster, but it can also turn somebody into a negative 10x developer if they're just accepting everything it spits out and shipping it. Now, instead of 1 bad decision, you've got 40 bad decisions, but they're generated at machine speed. And some of them compile, which makes it worse. Bad code that doesn't work, it's obvious. Bad code that works just well enough to make it into production is how you end up crying in a refactor 3 months later. Companies have prioritized flashy numbers and the appearance of technological superiority without taking the time to think through the consequences. More code does not mean better software. Sometimes more code just means more garbage to own. Another problem is that once companies roll AI out, they immediately start measuring the dumbest things. How many people logged in? How many prompts were submitted? How many summaries were generated? How many departments are now AI enabled? But none of that tells you whether the work actually got better. It tells you that people touched the tool. It's like measuring gym progress by how many times somebody opened the gym door. Technically, yes, you interacted with the building. Congrats. But this is how you end up with fake success metrics. A dashboard that says 400 employees used the AI assistant this month and everybody starts clapping. But what did it actually do? Did it reduce ticket volume? Did it improve response quality? Did it make code safer? Did it reduce burnout? Did it make anything less painful? Or was it just used by 400 people to rewrite an email, generate a meeting summary, or explain what EBITDA means? This is where the AI adoption conversation gets weird. Companies measure usage because usage is easy to measure. Quality is harder. Actual outcomes are harder. Nobody wants to sit there and admit we spent 6 figures to generate slightly nicer bullet points. And then there's the accountability problem. Who owns the AI when it's wrong? If an employee makes a bad decision based on AI output, is it the employee's fault? Is it the vendor's fault? Is it the training team's fault? Is it leadership's fault for not rolling it out with guardrails? Is it security's fault because apparently everything is security's fault eventually? That ownership needs to be defined before something goes wrong, not after. Because human in the loop sounds great until the human in the loop is just a person leadership blames when AI confidently makes something up. And while companies are busy building official AI strategies, shadow AI is already out there happening. People are pasting emails, spreadsheets, logs, source code, meeting notes, and probably half of the company's internal documentation into random tools because the approved process is slow, painful, or non-existent. So you get this weird split. Officially, the company has a careful AI strategy. Unofficially, Greg from Finance has been using whatever free chatbot popped up first on Google because it helped him fix an Excel formula one time. That's not an AI strategy. That's vibes with legal and security exposure. Now, on to the recurring segment, Buzzword Court. Today's defendants: AI-powered, agentic, transformative, single pane of glass, human in the loop, intelligent automation, co-pilot, autonomous workflow. The court asks one question: does this mean anything, or did a vendor just need another bullet point? Let's start with AI-powered. AI-powered can mean anything. It can mean genuinely useful model doing real analysis, but it can also mean someone added a chatbot to a search bar and called it the next big thing. Agentic. Agentic is one of those words that makes everyone in the room nod while secretly hoping nobody asks for a definition. It sounds advanced, futuristic. It sounds like the software is about to file taxes and raise a family. But half the time, it just means we chain 3 prompts together and hope nothing weird happens. Then we have transformative. This word needs to be put on probation. Every vendor says their product is transformative. How? Did it transform the business, or did it just transform a simple workflow into a 6-month implementation project? Then we have single pane of glass. I don't know who needs to hear this, but putting 7 broken dashboards into one larger broken dashboard doesn't make it better. It just makes the glass bigger. Then there's human in the loop. This one can be real. This one can matter. But sometimes human in the loop just means the AI might be wrong. So good luck, Dave. And now we get on to intelligent automation. And this one sounds great until you realize a lot of the time it just means normal automation with a chatbot stapled in. Not everything needs intelligence. Sometimes I just need the thing to move data from column A to column B without turning it into a philosophical event. And then there's Copilot. At this point, everything is a Copilot. Your email is Copilot. Your browser is a Copilot. Your spreadsheet is a Copilot. Your toaster probably has Copilot. And half the time, the Copilot isn't even flying the plane, navigating, or helping with takeoff. It's just sitting there confidently suggesting the wrong airport. And finally, autonomous workflow. Now, this sounds like a system that is going to handle entire business process by itself. But in reality, it usually means the workflow runs until it hits one weird edge case, panics, opens a ticket, emails the wrong person, and then waits for a human to fix it. The court finds these terms guilty of being suspiciously vague, sentencing them to 6 months of plain English documentation. Now, with the silly stuff aside, the key takeaway from this episode is before buying AI, you need to ask yourself, what problem am I trying to solve? Define the pain point. Define what better looks like. Define how you'll know it worked. Define who owns the output. Define what happens when something goes wrong. If you don't have a clear goal and a clear definition of success, you're only setting yourself up for failure. And most importantly, be honest about whether AI is actually solving the problem or just making the problem look more modern. AI is useful. AI is powerful. But it isn't magic. It's not going to fix broken processes. It's not going to replace good judgment. It won't make a bad strategy good, and it definitely won't save a company that thinks we use AI now is the same thing as having a plan. Use AI as a power tool. Don't use it as a religion. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of 0 Day Sense Nonsense. With this being the first episode and me being new to podcasting in general, this is definitely going to be a little bit rough. The audio isn't going to be perfect. My speaking isn't going to be perfect. I can't tell you guys how many times I had to re-record these segments because I lack the ability to speak like a grown man. But I appreciate you guys sticking through it. Thank you guys for tuning in and have a wonderful day.